Okay, if there's a minimum wage, the system is going to encourage basically both of you two to be paid the same thing. But if there's no minimum wage, Jorge is going to sink to his own level because he's not that good of a worker, whereas you as a better worker would be able to rise and demand more. So they're basically saying you should determine what it should be. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between liberals and libertarians.
Okay, that's where you start getting back into the question again. Liberals also said that the government should stay out of moral issues, but what did they say about economics or the wallet? They should regulate, and that's the difference. The difference is that libertarians say the government should stay out of both. Liberals say the government should regulate the economics, but continue to stay out of the wallet. So liberals would say yes to national health insurance.
No, they say yes to the wallet, no to the
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. No regulation of the moral or the bedroom issues, and definitely to regulate. And this is where you start getting into the Robin Hood idea. Liberals would say take from the rich and give to the poor, and in fact everybody should have something. Too few people should not have too much, but everybody should have something. Libertarians would say, I earn my money, you earn your money, let's go forth and be happy. Liberals would say, if I don't earn enough and you earn too much, this needs to be equalized a little bit, so in fact we're going to look out or regulate the wallet. Do you remember the liberal article that I'd given you? It was the one in California with the highways where they wanted to build a tunnel through an earthquake zone. If you remember, liberals typically believe that the glass is half full, and they believe in the positive ability of the government to enact change. So they thought that they could build that tunnel in the earthquake zone, and it was going to be a very expensive project. Did it make sense? Maybe you could argue it did, but you could also argue this is a really foolish kind of a policy because there's the potential to waste a lot of money. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Why is that a liberal thing?
It's liberal because it's basically arguing for the positive role of government. Government can get involved and they can make a situation better. The glass is half full as opposed to being half empty.
Even though it's like not a very small.
It doesn't have to be a good idea. It represents
okay.
the belief, when you think about it, of government's role and how it can be positive. Conservative. What did conservative believe? They believed that the individual was really half empty. So if liberals believed in the positive role of government and they believed in the goodness of people, conservatives believed in the idea of the negative potential impact of government and the negative part of people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
To conserve what exists.
To conserve or preserve what exists. The idea is that the devil that we know is better than the devil that we don't. And conservatives would put their confidence in traditional institutions like government, like church, religion, like social values. And in fact, if we try and change these, what we create might actually be worse. What was the Jim Crow? And what was Jim Crow? Can you give me some examples? Jim Crow was awful. Okay, that's a start.
The Jim Crow laws, marriage should be only between blacks and whites, not mixed.
It was Jim Crow was basically trying to conserve slavery or not necessarily slavery, but to conserve the traditional Southern or the traditional race institutions after slavery had been struck down.
Yeah, schools should be separated.
Only black and white schools, only white or black marriages.
It went even to literature, only certain books.
If a white child started using a book, only white children should use it thereafter. And if a black child started using a book, only black children should use it thereafter.
Oh, color blood.
Yes. I probably won't test you on the fraction of the blood. That's a little bit, tough. But look at that article and consider some of the examples of the Jim Crow laws there. And again, I'm not saying that all liberals are stupid. I'm not saying that all conservatives are racist. But what I'm really saying when you look at this is that they're preserving those previous institutions with those laws. What was a populist?
That the state should help people before they can help themselves. It was the article about the sex offender was populist, right?
It was. There were about 3 with this. When you go back and you look at populist, government should regulate moral issues or the bedroom, and government should regulate wallet issues or the economics. And the argument was that government can make better decisions for many people than the people can make for themselves.
So populist government should regulate everything?
Yes. And the danger of that is, and they oftentimes start doing it to help people, but the danger is that the more that they feel people aren't respecting what they're trying to do, the more that they regulate them more and more and more to help them more and more and more. Go ahead.
You say that, I'm not sure you said in this class, I know you said in the government class that populist people are more likely to be dictatorial.
They can run into dictatorships, yes, yes,
Sounds
absolutely.
about like 1984.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The articles for this, and I know we got to move because there might even be a class coming in. I had given you the Hugs article, if you remember. I had given you the sex offender article, if you remember. And I had given you the TT article, if you remember. The HIV-infected prostitute, TT, with the hugs, the schools banning hugs, and the fear that, in fact, these young folks might, when you think about it, lead to harassment and whatnot, even though it was just a greeting. And then with the Wolf Hawk, the idea of the man that had committed the double rape, of teenage girls, and then 20 years later, Pennsylvania took his child away. The other one actually that I had given you was the soda ban, and this is, and I'll go back to the other, I'll go back to our session because the soda ban article was one of the ones that is new this semester for me. But when you go back and you look at this one, don't forget the soda ban as well. And I've got the Jim Crow article up there. But the soda ban was New York basically saying that soda was causing health and dietary issues. So let's limit it to what?
16 ounces.
16-ounce servings. If you have bigger servings, you'll drink more. If you have smaller servings, you'll drink less. Yes?
Warren, which of the articles has the TT on?
TT is on the same page as Jim Crow, I think. I think it's on the same page as Jim Crow. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, it's on the same page as the Jim Crow article, so it's definitely there. Feminism, pretty straightforward. We have the Inez articles, and don't forget about the links in this chapter, because when you look back on this, I had the 47% quote from Romney. I'm voting Republican, I'm voting Democrat are two really good ones. And something that we've come back to an awful lot is what it means to be a Democrat and what it means to be a Republican. And we've talked about this in about 3 or 4 different capacities, and we've kind of spread this over several chapters. So that is another one that's really a big kind of a theme. And then, of course, we had our anthem, but that's really where we start getting into political culture. Nationalism. Nationalism was the winner of all of the ideologies, if you remember. So make sure you got a good definition of nationalism and a good definition of feminism. You can nix social democracy too. I won't give you anything on that.
Did we ever go over the Korematsu?
We did not. From chapter 7, let's go ahead and nix the Korematsu case. I got no problems with that. That's where we're going to start when we come back next Thursday. For 7, and I know I got to move because we're just about out of time. Political culture and public opinion were basically straight definitions. So keep that in mind. Go ahead, Sergio.
Well, we need to know about the purple states, chapter 7.
Basically, you can argue purple states are what?
Swing state.
The swing states, yeah. So I won't ask you a question specific about those, but make sure that you're good with that red state, blue state. And the other part of that was that quote from this chapter. I think it was on 124, the one about Republicans and Democrats, because that starts getting into the red and the blue states. So maybe take a good look at that. Y'all remember 14, right? 14?
How many states it takes to win the electoral college?
Actually, it's 11 states that it takes to win the electoral college. But what was significant about the age of 14?
Oh, that's when you're politically...
That's when you're politically mature, if you choose to be, so you would be capable on
Who
this.
determined that again?
What's that?
Who determined that age? Who said 14?
14. I told you I really wasn't sure who came up with this, and I wasn't sure how comfortable I was with that number. But basically, if you were capable, you would be capable of understanding at 14 if you chose to, but it doesn't mean that you automatically would. These articles are real good, and for some of these, the Rwanda article was dealing with the percentage of women votes. That's a real quickie. The red plates and the blue plates, talking about Cracker Barrel versus Whole Foods, didn't spend a lot of time on that. Don't worry about it as much, but maybe that could be part of a bigger answer. And when you look at this, addicts, this was Barbara Harris. Please make sure you're good with this, and I know we're about out of time. Anthem is a fairly big one, talking about the translation of the anthem. Chick-fil-A is another one of those foods. So Chick-fil-A, the Walmart vote, if you remember, the idea of certain places that you shop could dictate if you're